Seeing Bruce's remorseful expression, she felt a sense of relief, knowing things were settled. About time. It should have been like this from the start. The long-haired man quickly replied, "Not really, just a few minor scratches. We treated them quickly," but the Duke insisted that he would handle it. The long-haired man recounted Johan's stubborn words. "I'll take care of it myself, but it's been screaming non-stop for days." After he said that, Litia had a good idea of what was going on, so I snuck out to come here while the others distracted the Duke. At that thought, she panicked and shouted, "Where is the dragon you brought with you?" The two of them rushed over on a dragon. Hearing the dragon's roar from the other side, she thought, "My God, you can hear it all the way from here?" The dragon stables are located far from the mansion, because due to their large size, the dragons are very noisy, even when they move carefully. That's why you normally can't hear their cries from so far away. And yet he'd heard it. The noise suddenly stopped, and he wondered, "Huh? It's quiet now? That's never happened before." After a moment, the two of them also. After he said that, Litia had a good idea of what was going on, so I snuck out to come here while the others distracted the Duke, even when they move carefully. That's why you normally can't hear their cries from so far away. "Tell you to rest?" Litia replied helplessly. "How can a trainer rest when her dragon is behaving so abnormally?" Arrived. Litia frantically called out to Kazan, seeing Johan sitting helplessly on the ground with his head in his hands, looking utterly dejected. Litia sighed to herself. They're really two peas in a pod. They say dragons and their masters are alike, and it's so true. Look at him, still putting on an act. "I'm sorry, Johan." His voice was cold, as if holding back anger. "So that's why you were pretending not to listen to me?" She looked up at him, thinking, that expression, his shoulders, his face. She remembered what he had said before. "In your expert opinion, do dragons really need to live in a pack?" He obviously cares a great deal for Kazan, but our conversations always seem to go in the wrong direction. Litia called out, "Duke." In her head, she thought, isn't he just jealous that his dragon has gotten attached to its trainer? The decision doesn't lie with the one in charge, but with Kazan. From the very beginning, the Duke had no intention of letting anyone come between him and Kazan. Litia sat on the grass, watching Kazan play. After lovingly raising a dragon for 10 long years, it ends up liking someone who is a complete stranger more than you. Naturally, he must feel very hurt. To not show that disappointment is at least a calm and mature reaction, but in the Duke's case, it comes out as suspicion. It is said that those chosen by dragons tend to have deeper emotions than ordinary people. I heard there's a deep sense of connection between a dragon and its chosen person, so I guess it's because of that special bond that Kazan chose me. But then I remember how I just bowed my head and apologized. With a sincere expression, I admit it was my fault for not anticipating Kazan's behavior. I will make sure to resolve this issue during the training session. But the Duke clearly doesn't trust me. You told me to rest for 1 week, but can I perhaps start the training today? Johan replied as he walked away. If I could, I wouldn't want to take away your time off. But since I have failed to calm Kazan, I have no other choice. I'm sorry for the trouble. End of flashback. Back to the present. When things go wrong, the one who gets the most tired is me. In a normal situation, a private trainer would have corrected them since they were young, but it's just that. No one ever said such things to the two of them. Watching Kazan roll around and play, getting himself all covered in mud. "Litia will give you a bath, Kazan." With a clueless expression, he had no idea what she was thinking, but little did he know that she was secretly scheming. If there was a lake around here, that would be great, then I could just soak him in the water and wash him easily. The dragon ran over to act cute with Litia, burying his head into her lap, but she suddenly rejected him. "No, Kazan, get away." When the dragon realized he wasn't getting pet, he lay down on the ground to throw a tantrum, but Litia firmly blew her command whistle. "That's enough. If you want to be coddled, go find the Duke." Seeing Kazan's incredibly pitiful face made her want to grab her head and scream internally. I actually really want to hug him. What kind of trainer wouldn't have their heart melt when a dragon shows affection like that? Especially when Kazan looks so incredibly cute, but I have to hold back. Both of them need this kind of experience. The long-haired man quickly replied, "Not really, just a few minor scratches. We treated them quickly," but the Duke insisted that he. A little later, as Johan was walking down a path, rolling up his sleeves yet still exuding an incredibly noble aura, he saw the dragon running towards him and was knocked to the ground. Kazan, Litia, was right behind him, and she asked, "Didn't you say you were going to correct Kazan's behavior?" He sat there, lovingly stroking his precious pet. "I did say that, but could he really change that much in just 1 day? Incredibly cute, but I have to hold back. Both of them need this kind of experience." And she asked, "Didn't you say you were going to correct Kazan's behavior?" Kazan as well as the Duke. From now on, I'll be the official trainer for both of them. Scene change. I will be leaving now to train the apprentices. Leaving Kazan in someone else's care is also a part of making everyone jump and worry for her safety. The tangent-skinned trainer and Jack rushed over, extremely concerned. The tan man. Something. "Trainer Litia, I apologize." He's never screamed like that before, nor has he demanded someone else. Expecting to be scolded by Litia, he was surprised when she said, "It's all right, I am the official trainer for Kazan. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'll be taking my leave now." Leaving behind the bewildered faces, with wide, stunned eyes, she walked away while smirking mischievously. His reaction doesn't seem too bad, right? Good. If he still doesn't believe me, I'll make him believe. This way, at least for now, I can breathe a little easier. Her words just now left Johan sitting there stunned, resting his head on Kazan. "Official trainer. Huh?" Scene changed to the training grounds. When everyone saw her, they happily put aside the work they were doing to welcome her. Trainer Latia, she cheerfully walked over to greet them. Hello, I hope I'm not disturbing everyone. They quickly replied, not at all. We just let the dragons out into the training field. She scratched her face while thinking ahead. Am I that scary? Even though it's one day early, I was planning on starting their training today, but before that, may I check on the dragon's condition? The attendant immediately said, this way, please. Lithia petted the dragons in their pens. After the wyverns, will the other dragons get to go for a walk? He quickly replied, yes. One of them is Lord Basco's wyvern. He likes to take care of it himself. Curious, she asked. Lord Basco? I see. Come to think of it, the Panthera stalker is a pretty rare species. The attendant beside her excitedly added, they say Duke Anbaron personally gifted that dragon. To him, she wondered. The Duke must hold Lord Basco in high regard to gift him a dragon from the Panthera stalker species. He added, their childhood friends. As he spoke, Lithia felt a murderous glare fixed on her from another dragon. You over there, is something bothering you? Good boy, come here and let me see. The white dragon let out a roar, making everyone jump and worry for her safety. The tangent-skinned trainer and Jack rushed over, extremely concerned. The tan man spoke up, Trainer Lithia, are you okay? Lithia shrugged and smiled to reassure them. Yeah, I'm fine. By the way, where's the trainer in charge of the Marcellet dragon? A man with a scar hurried over. That would be me, Trainer Lithia. She stood up straight to get a better look at Rura's situation. While you were caring for him, were there any unusual signs? You need to report even the tiniest things to me. The scarred man seemed flustered. Unusual signs? Rura has always been sensitive, much more so than the other dragons. He's always been that way. She looked doubtfully at the trembling Rura in its pen. Always? Someone. She stood up straight to get a better look at Rura's situation. While you were caring for him, were there any a chaotic succession dispute? I don't know all the details, nor do I know how it managed to survive. All I know is that its former owner and trainer both died during that time. Hence, he became this sensitive. Dragons are very smart. When a person suddenly approaches claiming to be its new master, it can sense that the old one isn't coming back. She fell silent. Grups made a request. I know it's shameless of me to ask, Trainer Lithia, but is there a way? A way, huh? Lithia started to investigate Rura's situation more deeply. What is Rura's current owner like? The scarred man quickly answered. Ah, that's Lady Donna, the only alchemist in the ducal house of Anbaron. Hearing that, Lithia thought curiously. An alchemist? Inside a luxurious palace, splendidly decorated in shades of red and pink. Johan was sitting at his desk, pen and paper in hand, looking like a total corporate slave. She said, about the alchemist Donna, is there a problem? His hand, clad in a black glove, moved swiftly across the paper. She spoke. Can I be frank? Lithia narrowed her eyes. Johan consented. Speak. The truth is all of the dragons in the ducal house have issues. Rura, the Marcellet dragon, needs the most urgent attention. He turned his attention to her, resting his chin on his hand as he asked, Her, are you saying there's a possibility Rura might act out? Lithia answered right away. It's highly likely. Johan stated his thoughts. Since we only have trainee trainers, I suspected as much, but to maintain things for over 10 years with just apprentice trainers is already phenomenal. Once they get certified, I bet they'll become full-fledged trainers. That's a surprise. Weren't you just at odds with them? You're just saying what's on your mind. If you told me to raise dragons under such harsh conditions, I'd refuse on the spot. But then Johan also made a demand that after 1 year, any trainer who isn't qualified will be fired. The fact that the wyverns all escaped at once was a very serious incident. Lithia made a promise that surprised him. What if I guarantee they'll be certified within 1 year? The air was tense, and neither of them said a word. Johan watched her in silence, and Lithia met his gaze without flinching. It was like they were locked in a battle of wills, Johan's hand resting motionlessly on the table. A moment later, she realized her mistake and looked away, saying nothing. Lydia thought to herself, this isn't the time. For a battle of wills, I have to convince the Duke. Old habits die hard. Johan's compromise surprised her. If that is the trainer's position, I will not interfere. Lydia glanced over at him. What? Johan looked up. A moment later, she realized her mistake and looked away, saying nothing. Lydia thought to herself, this isn't the time. Lithia agreed. Yes. Outside, the hallway was decorated in gold with red window drapes, and white chairs were lined up neatly. I hear she's always buried in her research. Getting her to leave the lab will not be easy. For a battle of wills, I have to convince the Duke. Old habits die hard. Johan's compromise surprised her. A moment later, she realized her mistake and looked away, saying nothing. Lydia thought to herself, this isn't the time. Cheek, thinking, I thought it would take a lot more effort to convince him, especially when I have to manage both Kazan and Zura at the same time. So I even had to bring up the trainer's certification issue. I never expected him to agree so easily. Well, for now, I guess I should count my lucky stars. First things first, I need to deal with this. Lydia knocked, but there was no answer. Is nobody home? The door suddenly flew open, startling Lydia. A weary-looking Donna leaned against the doorframe and asked who she was. Donna, the alchemist, of the Anbaron dukedom, whose sullen, exhausted appearance reminded Lithia of an angry black cat with its fur standing on end, but Lithia remained polite and confirmed. Ah, you must be Lady Donna, the alchemist, correct? She replied, her face slightly scrunched up. Yeah, that's me. Lithia smiled brightly, presenting the decree to Donna with both hands. I'm Lithia, the exclusive trainer for the Unbarren Dukedom, she said with a perfectly harmless smile. Donna took the decree and read it. She stood quietly, but in her head, Lithia was thinking, why does this feel like a job interview? Donna agreed and invited her in. Ah, she's letting me in! Lithia rejoiced internally. Awesome! I passed the interview! Ah, yes, thank you so much. Donna cleared a spot for her. Lithia felt a bit awkward, seeing the alchemist's rather messy workshop. Donna was curious about her visit. So, why are you here? She gave a polite laugh and replied, I heard that you are the master of the dragon, Marcellus Flora. Upon hearing this, Donna's expression immediately darkened. The exclusive trainer for the Unbarren Dukedom, she said with a perfectly harmless smile. Donna took the decree and read it. The exclusive trainer for the Unbarren Dukedom, she said with a perfectly harmless smile. Donna took the decree and read it. That's a very serious matter, which is why I want to suggest correcting it. Donna turned her back to her, her voice considerably less shaky. So, can't the trainer here do it? Donna clutched the dress she was holding in her hands. Lydia began to explain to Donna, no trainer is allowed to conduct training without the owner's permission. Besides, the training is more effective with the owner's involvement, and right now, your presence is exactly what Rura needs. She replied, Rura has always been like that ever since I became its owner. Why is its behavior suddenly a problem now? Lithia called out to the lady who was hiding her face with her back turned, and began to inquire, Lady Donna, how many times a week do you visit Rura? Donna answered hesitantly, well. She bit her lip as Lithia continued to probe. And when you visit, how much time do you spend with? To it, Lady Donna, do you care about Rura at all? Lithia watched Donna's back as she prepared to leave. Donna answered hesitantly, well. She bit her lip as Lithia continued to probe. And when you visit, how much time do you spend with? Lithia suggested gravely, if Lady Donna finds being in charge of Rura a burden, then please give it to someone else. If you only need the water produced by the Marcelite dragon species, away, and suddenly asked, do you care about Rura? She didn't answer, causing Lithia to sigh helplessly. Anyone else? She was surprised by Donna's unexpected reaction. Sometimes there are people, a spot for her. Lithia felt a bit awkward, seeing the alchemist's rather messy workshop. Donna was curious about her visit. So, why are you here? Donna agreed and invited her in. Ah, she's letting me in! Lithia rejoiced internally. Awesome, I passed the interview. Ah, yes, thank you so much. Donna cleared, spoke calmly. If you are willing to improve, then there's no need for a replacement. However, if that's not the case, then frankly, Donna agreed and invited her in. Ah, she's letting me in! Lithia rejoiced internally. Awesome, I passed the interview. Ah, yes, thank you so much. Donna cleared, is exactly what Rura needs. She replied, Rura has always been to get closer to Rura. Recalling Rura's aggressive behavior, Donna grew even more helpless and weary, but Rura never to get closer to Rura. Recalling Rura's aggressive behavior, Donna grew even more helpless and weary, but Rura never. I don't know what I did wrong. It was unusually sensitive that day, and a searing heat washed. Donna agreed and invited her in. Ah, she's letting me in! Lithia rejoiced internally. Awesome, I passed the interview. Ah, yes, thank you so much. Donna cleared. Donna's face darkened, and she said flatly, if it had been any deeper, they said my organs would have been damaged. And began to inquire, Lady Donna, how many times a week do you visit Rura? Settled state, I understand the situation, but that makes it even harder to understand why. Facing Rura must be a burden for you. So what reason do you have to refuse my request? Some trainers even quit after being injured by dragons, especially in a case like yours, Lady Donna. That wound is quite serious. At that moment, she suddenly interrupted Lithia. Even so, I can't give Rura away. Donna's voice began to tremble. Rura, her emotional state was deteriorating, which startled Lithia. She covered her face, sobbing. Rura was my father's dragon. I wanted to grow closer to him, but now all I remember is the pain. I don't know what to do. I don't want to send him away. But whenever I see him, my body just trembles. One peaceful morning, as Johan was carefully tending to Kazan in the garden, he saw Lithia arrive, and asked, Did you request more magical artifacts? She replied softly, Yes, sir. He gently touched Kazan's chin and asked quietly, Is it because of the dragon, Maxwell? Her entire body began to tremble, and she stammered in a panic. I've honestly been trying. I've always done my best. He silently recalled Rura's aggressive form. Johan spoke again. I've said it before, all dragons have issues, but Rura's case is the most urgent. With that, he looked over at Kazan and asked, So for now, Rura needs it, but other dragons might use it too, right? She answered softly, Yes. Hearing this, Johan asked in a low voice, Are you aware that Lady Donna was once injured by Rura? At this, he gave her a meaningful look, the corner of his lip twitching up slightly. Of course, I personally fired the trainer in charge of Rura after that incident. Looking at his cold expression, Lithia sighed helplessly, thinking to herself, So, in the end, he was just fired. As if reading her mind, Johan explained, It's not the kind of firing you're thinking of. Lithia was surprised, and asked, What do you mean? He answered nonchalantly, explaining, The Donna family has studied alchemy for many generations. As you know, families like that often pass down secret arts. Imagine, what kind of person would approach Rura just to steal those secret arts? Johan's every word made Lithia realized the harsh truth in horror. She furrowed her brow and asked in a low tone, Are you referring to the trainer? He replied flatly, He was just a pawn following orders. I heard that. The real intention wasn't just to steal the family's secret arts, but to eliminate the alchemists from the ducal family. Recalling Donna's unstable mental state, Lithia asked, "Does Lady Donna know?" Johan helplessly replied, "Even though I explained it to her, being attacked by Rura was the biggest shock for her." Hearing this, she said in a low voice, something so senseless. Her words immediately made Johan and Kazan look over in astonishment. Lithia suddenly collapsed to the ground, burying her face in her hands, which surprised Johan. Trainer Lithia? She kept her head down, thinking silently. Lady Donna had her reasons, but the one to blame was the trainer. Yet she took all the responsibility. Something so senseless. Her words immediately made Johan and Kazan look over in astonishment. Lithia suddenly collapsed to the ground, burying her face in her hands, which surprised Johan. One else. After everything that happened with Donna, I can't even begin to imagine how high of a wall Rura has built around himself. A somber voice suddenly echoed in the void of Lithia's memory. It was Donna's voice. He's so pitiful. Her frail image appeared in her mind again. Donna's voice was always full of love when she spoke of Rura. Sometimes, Rura screams, and it's nothing like his usual. He's so pitiful. Her frail image appeared in her mind again. Donna's voice. That's why I don't want to find a new master for him. I want to tell him that he's not the only one who has lost someone, but I guess he's so pitiful. Her frail image appeared in her mind again. Donna's voice held a hint of sadness. It made Lithia feel even more sympathetic. If she were its trainer, maybe Zura. He's so pitiful. Her frail image appeared in her mind again. Donna's voice, with his hand, which confused Kazan. What should I do? Johan replied, "You're good at this sort of thing." Kazan asked helplessly, "What if she gets mad?" He replied nonchalantly, "That's on you." Their communication was useless, so in the end, Kazan decided to move closer to Lithia, which surprised her. It let out a soft whimper, gently nuzzling its head against her affectionately. Seeing its actions, Lithia couldn't help but laugh and reached out to pet Kazan's head. "Are you worried?" It chuckled in response. "Of course." Her voice softened as she said, "Thank you, Kazan. I feel all right now, thanks to you," and asked, "What do you mean?" He answered nonchalantly, explaining, "The Donna family has studied alchemy for many." Upon hearing her words, its face immediately lit up with joy, but that happiness was short-lived, as Kazan, its eyes darting to Johan, full of confusion. "Ah." He looked at the two of them, cleared his throat, and said, "It's hard to refuse a dragon." Upon hearing her words, its face immediately lit up with joy, but that happiness was short-lived, as Kazan. "As a trainer, my job isn't just to spoil them. I have to maintain a professional boundary." Its eyes darting to Johan, full of confusion. "Ah." He looked at the two of them, cleared his throat, and said, "It's hard to refuse a dragon." Upon hearing her words, its face immediately lit up with joy, but that happiness was short-lived, as Kazan gazed at her, his lips parting slightly. "Even so, I have a feeling Kazan doesn't just want a little bit of affection." Johan's words surprised Lithia. He looked away and said quietly. Her words immediately made Kazan's face fall in a sulk. Seeing its pouting face, Lithia couldn't hold back. He said in a low voice, "You are Kazan's exclusive trainer." Lithia looked at Johan, surprised. So suddenly? Her words immediately made Kazan's face fall in a sulk. Seeing its pouting face, Lithia couldn't hold back. "That's being so affectionate. You're quite strict." Lithia looked at Johan and said, "I do like dragons, but..." Who was resting obediently on the ground. "This isn't really a suggestion, is it? Kazan has seemed a little down lately, maybe because I've been trying to keep my distance." Thinking this, Lithia called out, "Kazan." It flinched, its eyes darting to her. Lithia smiled and asked, "Are you feeling left out?" As if she'd struck a nerve, Kazan rushed to her with teary eyes. Lithia hugged the large dragon, chuckling softly to soothe it. There. You've been so patient. Good boys deserve a reward." She gently stroked Kazan's head, glancing over at Johan standing pensively in the distance. "If its master insists, then of course I have to comply. There's no need to annoy the Duke right now, but I wonder why he suddenly changed his mind." The next day, Lithia entered Rura's cell. She smiled at the creature before her and said, "Hello, Rura." It narrowed its eyes at Lithia, warily, letting out a hissing growl. She looked around the space and thought to herself, they even lit calming incense, and it's still not working. Seeing Rura's attitude, Lithia turned to make a suggestion to Trainer Zoso. "Can we change the door to a transparent one?" Zoso looked at her in surprise, but still rushed to answer. "Ah, yes, of course." Hearing that, she immediately opened the door and stepped into the cage. Lithia thoughtfully looked at the creature lying on the ground. She turned around, satisfied. "Good, now then." Vaso came over to help Lithia carry the wooden table inside, and quietly asked, "Are you planning to stay here?" She smiled and replied, Except for when I'm spending time with Kazan, I'll be planting. My root's here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me." With that, she waved to Jaxo, Trainer Jaxo. He seems to only be taking care of Rura to maintain the status quo because he's never been attacked. He is simply enduring it, not out of any affection. Even if that's what has to be done, perhaps Rura doesn't feel comfortable either. It also needs to understand that not every human will proactively approach it. Lydia carefully placed the documents on the table and began her busy workday in the cage with Rura, but it seemed completely uninterested in Litia's presence, leaving her a bit disappointed. Looks like this is going to take a while. A few days later, Litia went to the garden to care for Kazan. It approached her, sniffed her, and then its expression hardened with displeasure, making her unable to hold back a laugh as she gently petted Kaizen's head. Did you smell the scent of another dragon? She thought to herself while stroking Kaizen. Kaizen doesn't seem as sensitive as I thought, even though he looks unhappy. This is still fine. This way, Kaizen can gradually get used to other dragons. It's really killing two birds with one stone. 2 weeks passed since she started watching over Rura's cage. During that time, we split the shifts for preparing food. I took the mornings and trainer Jaxo was in charge of the evenings. After some time of just staying quietly near its space, it started to let its guard down in our relationship. It's really killing 2 birds with 1 stone. 2 weeks passed since she started watching over Rura's cage. During that time, to sniff when I got close. I thought it would take months or even years, but who knew there would be such a good sign beyond my expectations. Thinking back on everything that had happened recently, Lithia couldn't help but fall into a thoughtful silence, muttering, should I tell Lady Donna about this soon? Suddenly, Kaizen let out a low growl, and she looked up in surprise. To ask it, what is it, you don't want to go for a walk anymore? But as soon as she looked up, Lithia saw Kaizen holding a few small and beautiful flowers in his mouth, right in front of her. He dropped the flowers into Lithia's hand, making her burst out laughing. Ha ha. Ha, are these for me? Kaizen let out a soft sound of confirmation. Lithia happily clutched the flowers and fell back onto the cool green grass. Thank you. Now who would dare say you're a walking volcano? Now, such a huge dragon. He's lived for over 10 years, and sometimes his actions are just so adorable. But Lithia looked at the flowers in her hand and said bluntly, even so, I can't stay any longer. Her words immediately made Kaizen unhappy, and he started rolling around, throwing a tantrum, leaving Lithia completely speechless. I'll gradually learn the habits of Agrus dragons through Kaizen, but right now he looks just like a whining child. She was suddenly startled. Wait, a child? What if Kaizen and Rura were to switch places? Then what? On another beautiful morning, Lithia and Donna went to Rura's confinement room. She looked at Donna's pale face and asked with concern, are you sure? Are you alright? You don't have to push yourself. Donna's whole body was trembling, but she still managed to say, I'm fine. It's not that I'm scared, but I can only stay outside its cage. Hearing this, Lithia gently placed a hand on hers to reassure her. There is one thing I have to confirm, which is why I asked for your help this time, Lady Donna. But if it's too much for you, please let me know. I'm always by your side. Don't overthink it. You just need to go in, say a quick hello, and then come right out. Donna looked at her, reassured, and nodded. As she stepped into the room, Lithia said softly, let's go. Donna stood tensely in the middle of the room, and the moment Rura saw her, it immediately arched its back and growled. Donna waved a trembling hand, forcing a smile. Hello, Rura. I just came to say hi. I'm sorry. I haven't visited in a while. Standing beside her, Lithia carefully observed Rura's behavior. So it's more wary of its own master than a stranger. Rura has been through a lot, so it's best to monitor it from now on, but its reaction is worse than I. She called out softly again, Rura, but this time it let out a ferocious growl, instantly making Donna's face turn pale with fear. Seeing the situation worsen, Lydia stepped forward. Lady Donna, that's enough. The moment it saw her approach Donna, Rura immediately swiped its claws at the two of them. Terrified, Donna threw herself into Lithia's arms, while Lithia stared at it in shock. This isn't just a threat. It actually intends to kill. The surprising thing is that it's not targeting Lady Donna. She called out softly again, Rura, but this time it let out a ferocious growl, instantly making Donna's face turn pale with fear. But me, looking at Rura's furious face, Lithia called out softly, Lady Donna. Donna was terrified, chasing me away. Hearing this, she was surprised. Donna looked at Lithia blankly and asked, What? Lithia said in a serious tone, If you push me, I'll back away immediately, but I'll just be hiding outside. Once I'm gone, speak gently to Rura and then leave. I know it's a bit scary, but this is necessary if you want to improve your relationship with it. As soon as she heard this, Donna immediately summoned all her courage and pushed hard at Lithia. Well then, but Donna's gentle push didn't even make her budge. Lithia said, a bit helplessly, harder. Donna looked at her awkwardly, but now Rura was looking at the two of them with confusion. Seeing Donna's hesitation, Lithia quickly reassured her, It's okay if I fall. You need to make it clear that you're rejecting me. Hearing this, she pressed her lips together firmly. Donna immediately put all her strength into a hard shove, surprising Rura. She yelled at Lithia, That's enough, please just go. Seeing Donna's firmer attitude, she smiled faintly with satisfaction, murmuring, You did a great job. Already. Lithia then stood up, continuing her act in front of Rura. I understand, Lady Donna. If you need me, please call me anytime. After she left, Rura turned to look at Donna, letting out a soft growl, which still made Donna's face pale with fright. She turned her head and saw a large figure sitting next to her. Lithia's voice echoed in her ear, reminding her, Once I'm gone, speak gently to Rura, and then leave. She was terrified but still managed to say, I'm leaving now. I only had a short break, so that's it, sorry. With that, Donna hurriedly walked out, surprising it. Rura watched her retreating back. It let out a confused growl. In the tea room, Donna's face was pale and dejected as she apologized to me. If only I had done better. Lydia immediately calmed her bewildered mind. No, this isn't your fault, Lady Donna. It's not anyone's fault. The one who's truly to blame isn't here. Of course, it takes effort from both sides, but right now I believe both you and Rura are victims. Donna looked at her in surprise. Victims? Lytia said softly. And Rura doesn't hate you, Lady Donna, she said in utter astonishment. But, before she could finish, Lytia quickly explained. He's just being aggressive, and I'm the target of that aggression. Lydia's words left Donna utterly shocked. That can't be. She fell silent and said softly. He was never like this before. I was surprised too. Rura always follows my commands. Whenever you're not around, we've checked. When you're not around, he listens. Donna lowered her head again, murmuring, That's right, he always ignores my commands. Lytia then said, That's the problem. She looked up at her, startled. What? Lytia gently explained. Rura doesn't recognize you as his master, and of course there are many reasons, but above all, it's because you're afraid of him. This isn't an issue that can be fixed in just 1 or 2 tries. To improve things, we need to continue what we started today. Do you believe you can do it? Donna's hands trembled as she stammered. Do you really think things between me and Rura can improve? Do you think I won't have to? Give up my father's dragon? Seeing that she was getting emotional again, Lytia gently reassured her. That's something I can't promise. However, as long as you don't give up, Lady Donna, I will continue to help. Donna was deeply moved by her words, saying with a choked voice, I know I'm lacking in so many ways, but please help me, trainer. I don't want to give up on Rura, like this. It was another beautiful, sunny day. Rura was curled up, contentedly enjoying himself in his enclosure. When he heard footsteps, he expectantly lifted his head to look at the door. It was her again, the old master's child, a human, who was small and weak, the one who used to tremble before me like a frightened rabbit. Even when the old master disappeared, even when the dragons I held dear bled and died, that human was helpless, unable to protect a single thing. Looking at Donna's cold expression, he let out his usual growl. She stared coldly at the beast in the enclosure. Donna then stepped forward with determination, and Rura immediately backed away, growling. Just then, her gentle voice rang out, making him freeze in astonishment. Rura! He stared at Donna in surprise. She gently called his name again, Rura. An invisible wall instantly formed between them, causing him to panic. Donna said, I already told you, you stubborn brat. Rura backed away in utter surprise. No! A weak human, pretending to be strong. Don't you dare call me that! He let out a loud roar and charged toward Donna. Lydia, who was watching carefully from outside, frowned. Just as I thought, he's not going to submit that easily. It makes sense. For all these years, he's been getting away with walking all over Lady Donna. Thinking this, she fell silent, stroking her chin and muttering, even if the previous trainer hadn't messed things up, he was already traumatized. With that, she glanced over at Kazan behind her and gave a small smile. Looks like there's no other choice. As his senior, I think it's time we taught him a little lesson, right, Kazan? While Donna was standing there, Lydia called out softly, Lady Donna. Though a bit startled, she smiled back in greeting. Trainer Lydia, this is Kazan, the Agrix dragon, right? Isn't it just magnificent? Although Lydia was a bit scared, she still answered cheerfully, Yeah, you're right. It really is magnificent. Meanwhile, Rura was growling in confusion at the humans, and a moment later Donna placed her hand on Kazan's head to give a blessing. At that moment, the image of the aggressively growling blue eyes white dragon appeared again. Seeing that sight, she fearfully pulled her hand back, but Lydia encouraged her, Don't stop. This is something Rura needs to understand right now. If he keeps being so stubborn, the only person who's always been there for him might just leave him for another dragon. She scoffed inwardly. It's the truth. If Rura doesn't change his attitude, even if Donna hesitates, I'm determined to see it through. Seeing how noisy Rura was, Kazem roared back in anger. Seeing the giant dragon before him, Rura immediately tucked his tail. Donna awkwardly explained, Rura is screaming like that because... But Lydia subtly nodded, showing her understanding. He has to go through this. Lady Donna, are you okay? Because she was so frightened she had taken some medicine. It's a potion that uses one's spirit to overcome fear, and if you take a large amount, you'll be filled with excessive confidence, easily leading to reckless actions, Sunsetia herb, Donna replied cheerfully. Thankfully, the potion seems to be working. My heart is beating a little fast, but I think I'm fine. Seeing her chug the potion, Lydia wondered to herself if she was really okay. After she had calmed down, she said, Anyway, you did great today, just as I said. For the next 1 week, you don't need to visit Rura anymore. Donna was still a bit hesitant, but since Rura had seen her so terrified earlier, Lydia immediately reassured her, I will take full responsibility for Rura's well-being. In front of Donna was the image of her affectionately petting Kazan. You're here? Good boy. Seeing that, she was momentarily stunned. After thinking it over carefully, Donna bowed deeply and entrusted him. I'll leave him in your care then. Lydia comforted her. Don't worry. From now on, Rura is the one who needs to be worried. 1 week later in the garden, Lydia was taking a stroll when she saw Donna and greeted her, Lady Donna. She was startled when her name was called, Trainer Lydia. Is Rura okay? Is he eating well and enjoying his walks? Hearing her words, Lydia smiled brightly and replied, You must have a lot of questions, so wouldn't it be faster for you to see for yourself? After that, Donna followed her to Rura's place, and as Donna walked, she worriedly thought, I'm really not entirely sure if Rura will react well. Seeing her lost in thought, Lydia softly called for Rura, but Donna was still lost in her own thoughts. If this doesn't work, as soon as they arrived, she called out to Rura, What's wrong? Are you sick? Donna thought to herself, There's no other way. Just then, Rura, with tears and snot streaming down his face, rushed towards her. Seeing this, Donna panicked. Seeing this, Lydia gave an instruction. Try talking to him gently. Donna reached out her hand and called Rura. Thankfully, the blue eyes white dragon responded to her, seeing him nuzzle his head. Against her hand left Donna completely astonished. Seeing she was so surprised, Lydia asked, "What is it?" Donna happily replied, "This is the first time I've ever seen Rura act like this." Hearing that, she then explained, "As for Donna's confusion, it's nothing serious. I just showed Rura who the only certified partner is, you know? The one to cherish and love it is Lady Donna. To put it simply, giving it a shock to wake it up is just the beginning. Lady Donna, from now on you need to build a good relationship with it." Suddenly, Donna began to praise Lydia. "You really can do anything. Thank you, trainer. Thank you so much." Lydia smiled gently at her. She played with Jura and thought to herself, just hearing those words means half the job is already done. A little later, the two said their goodbyes. Lydia stretched happily for having done a good job, temporarily overcoming the danger. Now the real challenge begins. Just then, someone came looking for Lydia. "Is something wrong, Bruce?" Bruce looked embarrassed and replied, "It's just that I find it so amazing." She happily asked back, "You mean Jura?" He nodded in confirmation. "Yeah, because I've seen Jura become more responsive and sharp. It makes me find this even more miraculous." While she was feeling happy, Lydia suddenly paused, confused about something. "Wait, now that I think about it, I completely forgot about my deal with the Duke." Suddenly she asked, "Bruce, you've worked here the longest, right?" Bruce nodded and replied, "That's right, for over 10 years now." She shyly made a proposal. "About that, if you have a moment, could we talk for a bit?" Bruce readily agreed. "Yes, of course." Time flew by, and soon it was evening. He scratched his head in confusion. "A certification, Miss Lydia?" "Found it a bit hard to start. I'm planning to help the apprentice trainers at the Duke's estate get their certifications. Honestly, the only thing they're missing is the certification, while their experience and skills are even better than the official trainers. Once they have the qualification, the difference in treatment between the apprentices and the official trainers will change drastically." Hearing her idea, Bruce smiled in praise. "That's a wonderful idea." Lydia was also pleased with her own initiative, right? With the qualification, they won't have to worry about being kicked out of the Duke's estate within the next 1 year. Just as she was feeling happy, he threw cold water on her idea. "But I'm afraid that might be a bit difficult," Lydia exclaimed in shock. "Huh, why?" Bruce scratched his head and explained, "I like the proposal, but I don't think I'm a good fit." Lydia's heart sank. Why would he say that? He then explained, "I'm not married, I live alone. With my current salary, I can live more than comfortably, and honestly, I'm not very good at studying. What I've experienced is often different from what's written in books." She asked again in confusion, "But didn't the Duke say before, if you can't prove your abilities within 1 year, you'll be fired? And isn't a qualification the most practical proof there is?" As she was speaking, Lydia suddenly stopped, thinking to herself, "Wait a minute, this isn't just about Bruce. Let me think. The Duke's trainers have endured such a harsh environment, they must have their own set of standards. The apprentices have already proven their loyalty to the Duke and have been taking care of the dragons all this time." Lydia helplessly asked, "Do the others think the same way you do?" Bruce hesitantly replied, "If you mean having a similar point of view as me, then yes, most of them do." Hearing those words, Lydia felt like she had been struck by lightning. She screamed internally, "I'm so screwed. Why did I think they would all jump at this opportunity? But I made a promise to the Duke, so I can't go back on my word." Suddenly she called out, "Bruce." He answered nervously, "Ah, Instructor Lydia." She got right in his face with a terrifying look and said, "I truly want all the apprentices to get their certifications and stay at the Manor, which is why I'm bringing. But I made a promise to the Duke, so I can't go back on my word." Suddenly she called out, "But these certification prep books have been passed down for centuries, and thousands of people. You've dedicated far more time to the Duke and his dragons than I have. If you were fired just because you lack a certification, it would absolutely break my heart. I'm not trying to dismiss your experience, have shared their experiences in them, just like you have. Statistics show that the books generally cater to the average, although, Instructor Lydia, it's not like that. The truth is, every single one of us wants to get certified." Lydia was taken aback. "Huh?" Seeing how agitated she was, he quickly said, "Please, calm down a bit. The reason none of us asked you for help directly is, well, we know how busy you are and we didn't want to be a burden to you. You have to take care of the dragons, and now you're helping Rura as well. We all genuinely think you're very admirable," Lydia declared forcefully. "I don't think I'm anything special." Bruce shook his head. "You are. We've spent several years trying to deal with this problem." Hearing that, Lydia pressed her lips together firmly. "I won't press you anymore. I truly appreciate the concern from you all, but I'm perfectly fine." Bruce coughed lightly and said, "No, I mean, I've already spilled the beans anyway." Lydia looked off to one side and said, "My words may be a bit jumbled, but everything I've said comes from the heart. Your skills are excellent, and it'd be a terrible shame to give up halfway. What if you end up getting kicked out a year from now? And if that happens, I'm the one who'll die from overwork." Hearing this, Bruce nodded in agreement. "That's a good point." Seeing her chance, Lydia laid out a plan. "So how about we study gradually, 3 sessions a week, just enough so it's not overwhelming." Bruce didn't even have to think about it, and agreed on the spot. "If you're okay with it, Instructor, then we're good with whatever. In that case, I know this is a bit shameless of me to ask, but can we count on you from now on?" Lydia smiled gently at his heartfelt words. She shook his hand and replied, "Of course you can." That evening, someone could be heard whistling in the hallway as Donna happily hummed a tune as she walked. How long has it been since I felt this happy? I actually used to wonder if it would be better for Rura, if I just gave up on it. The constant stress and its aggression were exhausting me. I'm still afraid when I'm in front of it. The memories of being injured still cling to me, but at least now I can pet it. She happily thanked Lithia in her thoughts. This is all thanks to instructor Lithia. Meanwhile, Johan stood leaning against a windowsill, lost in thought. A surprised Donna hurried over to greet him, "Your Grace." Seeing her approach, he nodded and replied, "Donna, have you completed what we discussed?" Donna answered with a wide smile, "Yes, Your Grace." Seeing how brightly she was smiling, he asked, "You look quite cheerful. Is everything with Rura going well?" As if a switch was flipped, she started gushing. "Yes, everything is wonderful. I thought I would never be able to get close to Rura," she gushed. "Yes, thanks to trainer Lydia, I was finally able to pet Dora's back. Isn't that great?" Seeing her like that, Johan just gave an indulgent smile. Trainer Lithia is truly talented. Donna was captivated by the Duke's smile, but just then, looking into a room, she saw Lithia. "Trainer Lithia?" Johan began to explain. "She promised to teach the apprentices in exchange for helping Rura." Donna exclaimed in surprise, "Huh? I had no idea." He leaned against the wall again and said, "I'm glad that this time we finally have a real trainer." Donna paused at his expression and called out hesitantly, Your Grace?" he asked nonchalantly. "What is it?" Donna asked. "Are you still having trouble sleeping?" Johan was caught off guard by her question and quickly tried to deflect. "That's not something you should concern yourself with. I'm adjusting the dosage, but overusing sleeping pills for a long time isn't good. I've been working with the physician to improve, but the only place I can sleep peacefully is beside Kazan." Donna stood helplessly, watching him leave. Just as Rura opened up to her, she wondered if the Duke would ever open his heart one day. At the same time, the evening wind began to blow. Lithia stood against the cold, thinking to herself, "All right, here's a question. When you're preparing to feed," the evening wind began to blow. Lithia stood against the cold, thinking to herself, "All right, here's a question. When you're preparing to feed, isn't good. I've been working with the physician to improve, but the only place I—" A shushing gesture and whispered, "Got it. I'll be quiet. Kazan." Just then, the Duke stirred in his sleep, making opened up to her. She wondered if the Duke would ever open his heart one day. At the same time, a dragon, and see its owner sleeping peacefully beside it. How are you supposed to feel? She made them both flinch and look over. She looked utterly exasperated, sighing internally. "I hate to admit it, but he's really, or anything, so hoping he'll be sweet to me seems a bit ridiculous. He's fast asleep. I hate to wake him, but..." Her neck began to bleed. As soon as he calmed down, he called out hesitantly, "Trainer Lithia?" Lithia said, "Sorry for scaring you. I came to." "Here?" Just then, Kazan lifted her high in its mouth. Johan roared in fury. "Who's there?" But Lithia couldn't dodge in time and was wounded in the neck. A wound on. Didn't hear a word. His eyes were fixed on her wound. Immediately, he moved closer to her. Johan said worriedly, "I have to call a physician." But Lydia replied nonchalantly, "I'm fine." His grip on her neck made it hard to breathe, and she choked out, "Your Grace. Check on Kazan, but I saw you sleeping here, so I was just gonna wake you. Are you all right?" But Johan, seeing no reaction, she waved a hand in front of his face to get his attention. "Your Grace?" After snapping out of it, Johan finally replied, "Trainer Lithia?" She nodded and said, "Yes, it's me. This is Kazan's stable at the Anbaran estate. Are you feeling better now? I saw something I wasn't supposed to. I'll just pretend I didn't see anything." Johan pressed his handkerchief to her neck to stop. Seeing no reaction, she waved a hand in front of his face to get his attention. "Your Grace?" After snapping out of it, Johan, the bleeding, startling Lydia. "Your Grace?" Without another word, Johan swept her up into his arms. "We need to treat you first, Lydia." Donna cried out in a panic. "Wait!" The bleeding stopped. "Look!" With a completely straight face, he replied, "But it'll leave a scar." She was horrified all over again and asked. Donna cried out in a panic. "Wait!" The bleeding stopped. "Look!" With a completely straight face, he replied, "But it'll leave a scar." She was horrified all over again and asked, "I will summon a physician so you can be treated properly. This is an order." Hearing those overbearing words, Lithia froze for 5 seconds. She thought helplessly, why would he give an order like that? The bleeding, startling Lydia. "Your Grace?" Without another word, Johan swept her up into his arms. "We need to treat you first, Lydia." Her intentions? "I know you well. Even if I order you to, you won't get treated right away." Lydia panicked and wondered to herself, does he read minds or something? How does he know? She spoke awkwardly. "Is there anything else? I mean, can I just go on my own?" A moment later, the butler's voice echoed in the tower. "Duke, where are you going? What in the world?" Johan replied nonchalantly, "I'm staying with Kazan." Seeing this, Lithia sighed to herself. "Oh my god." Suddenly, he turned back and said, "More importantly, call a priest who can use divine power. Trainer Lydia is injured." Lithia refused. "There's no need to call a priest." Hearing she was injured, the butler shrieked, "You injured your neck? What happened?" Johan then commanded, "Butler, prepare a meal for Trainer Lithia as well." He nodded and replied, "As you command." Seeing this, Lithia quickly waved her hands. "No, really. I'm very busy today." Hearing her refusal, Johan asked in a threatening tone, "Do you dare to defy my order?" Lydia hesitated and said, "I'm hungry." A moment later, Lydia sighed helplessly to herself. Something like this? Am I imagining it? Getting to eat meat in the morning? Aren't I being taken care of really well? Or am I imagining things? A maid spoke respectfully, Trainer Lydia. The Duke left a message for you. He said that Kazan has already been fed, and Rura is also being looked after by the person in charge, so you don't need to worry and should just enjoy your meal. Hearing those words, Lydia became even more amused, and thought, well, I guess I'm not imagining it. But if this is just an apology for holding a knife to my neck, it's a bit much. With his usual personality, I thought he would just ignore it, but I guess not. He doesn't need to feel guilty. Next time he wants to sleep with Kazan, I hope he tells me beforehand, just don't sneak in silently. Johan recalled his conversation with her when he entered the tower. He had asked, you're not going to ask why I was sleeping there. But she just laughed without answering. Lydia had smiled brightly and replied, if you've ever touched Kazan's scales, then I can completely guess the reason. When she said that with such calm understanding, why couldn't I deny that my reason for sleeping beside Kazan was more than just the warmth of its scales? Even so, I still haven't been able to completely trust Lydia. The trainers at the ducal manor have pulled all sorts of tricks. Do they ever show their true colors from the start? Pointing a sword at them is perfectly reasonable. Since then, no one has dared to approach my room again. I called a priest for her and treated her to a meal, so that should be enough. Furthermore, the image of her blushing and backing away made Johan pause for a moment. Then he shook off the stray thoughts. The next day, under a clear blue sky and golden sun, Lydia was carrying a stack of books and walking while sighing that teaching others is so tiring. She seemed to be wearily making plans. I have to prepare more materials for the Longma section, and after answering their questions, I realized the content is still lacking. The books I have now aren't enough. Maybe I should check the library? Although I'm not sure I'll find it. What I need there, I also need reference books on the physical characteristics of the Agris dragon species as well. Zura's training is also going well, so it's time to start. Of the training grounds to discuss. I should meet with my employer, right? Even at the Asa training grounds, I never. And Rura is also being looked after by the person in charge, so you don't need to worry and should just enjoy your meal. Hearing those words, Lydia became even more amused. What I need there, I also need reference books on the physical characteristics. Then greeted him. Your Grace, you're early today? Johan replied indifferently. Isn't it time for Kazan's afternoon training and his walk? She sat down quietly, thinking to herself. Since this morning, things between me and the Duke have been a bit awkward, Johan asked without looking at her. Then greeted him. Your Grace, you're early today? Johan replied indifferently. Isn't it for their certification exam? He remarked. Is that so? You've got quite a lot, she replied enthusiastically. The scope of the dragon training certification exam is very broad. I'm not sure where the questions will come from. Of the Agris dragon species as well. Zura's training is also going well, so it's time to start. Since this morning, things between me and the Duke have been a bit awkward, Johan asked without looking at her. She replied enthusiastically. The scope of the dragon training certification exam is very broad. I'm not sure where the questions will come from. Thinking, even all this isn't enough, she hesitated before suggesting, Your Grace, I should tackle the hardest thing first, Lydia hesitantly asked. The records on the Agrix line were lost when the exclusive trainer. Of Your Grace, Johan asked, confused. You mean my experience raising Kazan? Caught off guard by the question, Lydia froze. Not knowing what to say, she answered dazedly, yes. She wondered to herself, wait, why is he holding that stack of books? Lydia still didn't understand what made him change like that. Ah well, there's nothing more valuable than the experience of the caretaker. Unused to this kind of attention, the Duke was chosen by an Argus dragon and he raised it since it was in an egg. Perhaps there's nothing more valuable than the experience of someone like that, she fretted internally. Requesting this is perfectly normal, but he might not give me the information, because he doesn't trust me yet. Johan cut off Lydia's train of thought. If that's the case, I think I'll need some time to organize my thoughts. She was stunned. Huh? Why? He explained. To suddenly have to talk about something that spans over 10 years, I don't know where to begin. The problem is there. Lydia needed a moment to process that. Huh? Johan glanced at her and, didn't you say you wanted multiple things? Lydia suddenly realized. Ah! She was completely bewildered. What is happening? But she still had to answer his question. I'd like to ask for your permission to build a training pen for Kazan, and the right to use the library. Johan held a stack of books in one hand and petted Kazan with the other. I'll inform the butler, so you can use the library. But are those for training Kazan? You said before that he needed to be with other dragons, and now you want to build a separate enclosure? That place will be used after his training is complete. Right now, if we put Kazan with the other dragons, we can't guarantee he'll be stable. Lydia looked at him with pride. As you know, Kazan is a dragon who is very clear about his likes and dislikes. His brilliant blue eyes shone, cold and sharp, as if they could see through any hidden secret. Johan replied softly. Right. Is that why you're trying so hard? Her smile was as radiant as the morning sun filtering through the leaves, carrying a gentle warmth that made the space around. She fretted internally. Requesting this is perfectly normal, but he might not give me the information. Exclusive trainer. He bowed his head silently in the face of her conviction. Johan's expression. With the other dragons, we can't guarantee he'll be stable. Lydia looked at him with pride. As you know, Kazan became serious. I heard you used Kazan to discipline Donna's dragon. There weren't any serious incidents. is a female. They're different species, but generally, male dragons are quite lenient with females, the ones who hatch eggs and raise the young. He glanced at Kazan and dealt a critical hit, meaning, Kazan, you like that dragon, the Marcellus one? Hearing this, Kazan flared up and her brighten up. Lithia declared confidently, well, it's one of the reasons I became his. A terrible rage. She watched him, helpless yet fascinated. Wow, I've never seen that reaction before. Johan understood what Kazan was saying. He said it's not true, Lithia, flashing with a frightening ferocity. But it didn't bother her. Once again, Lithia watched Kazan affectionately. Is Kazan embarrassed? He looked exasperated. No, it's more like he's in utter disbelief. A while later, Johan was in his office writing a letter when the butler came to report, Trainer Lithia has entered the library. He was curious. Today as well? The butler replied calmly, yes, sir. Even though Kazan has accepted her, I still need to keep observing Lithia. She probably doesn't realize it, but I've made sure supervising eyes are always following her. Because there's nothing more foolish than easily letting one's guard down around someone who has just entered the Anbaran ducal estate. But according to recent reports, Lithia hasn't shown any hidden agenda, and has only been focusing on the dragons. Can I really trust her? What if everything is just a trick of hers? That possibility can't be ruled out. There have been countless people who acted the moment we let our guard down after they've laid low for years. To date, there are no records of a surviving Agris dragon like Kazan. If she changes her mind and seriously injures Kazan, I will never forgive myself, as Johan was lost in his own anguish. Basco suddenly knocked on the door. Your Grace, it's Basco, he replied immediately. Come in. He gracefully held a thick stack of documents as he entered the room. Johan was amused. You brought him with you again today? Basco laughed sheepishly. Ah yes, that's right. Emerald, the Stalker Pantera dragon. He inquired about Emerald's situation. Still not used to him? To him, even holding that huge stack of documents, he's happy to have him. He rarely shows affection, and he doesn't come up to be cuddled. Smiled brightly. Whether he likes her or not, he didn't show any hostility. He just let out a thunderous roar, his blazing golden eyes. A soft purr rumbled from it, just like a small cat being affectionate, both shy and adorable. He was a bit moved, his eyes trembling slightly, a look of surprise flashing across his face. Johan unintentionally ruined this sweet moment. Do you have anything to report? Basco was startled. Ah, yes! I brought some documents for the routine inspection. His face grew stern. Is there anything of note? He reported cheerfully. The dragon care has entered a stable phase, and dragon management efficiency has improved, and the apprentice's satisfaction has also increased. Johan nodded. I see. Basco felt relieved. Well, thanks to a professional trainer. Being in charge of the practical tasks, everything seems to have stabilized, even the dragon Marcellus. The female, who belongs to the most sensitive and fussy of all dragon species, has also settled down. Furthermore, the taming of the wild dragons captured during the Wyvern escape incident is proceeding smoothly, all thanks to trainer Lydia. Can we trust her? If we trust her then, he interrupted suspiciously. What guarantee do you have that she won't be like the others who have infiltrated the ducal family in the past? That was a difficult question. It left him unable to answer. Regarding that, I can't be certain. Johan was silent for a few seconds before replying. I thought as much. Basco glanced aside, trying to come up with a plan. An idea sparked. Then, Your Grace, let me keep an eye on trainer Lydia. Shall I? He was stunned by the suggestion. What was that? Basco simply continued with his proposal. As for the cute and cuddly part, we can leave that to Emerald. I wanted to ask your opinion about her. You need a reason to trust trainer Lydia, right? I also hope that someone as talented as she is won't betray us. So Johan, if you're finding it difficult to decide, why not leave it to me? Lithia couldn't hide her astonishment. You want me to train a Stalker Panthera dragon? Basco smiled innocently. Yes, that's correct. It was a friendly smile that was hard to refuse. Ah, is there a problem with that? She became flustered, waving her hands. No, not at all. Lithia stood there completely stunned. How should I put this? It's just a little surprising. Training a Stalker Panthera, a dragon that is completely devoted to its master and never leaves their side. That dragon belongs to Sir Basco, the man in charge of internal affairs during the Duke's absence. He could have just summoned me, instead of coming to find me himself. Her eyes began to sparkle like stars. Ah, my apologies, but sir, could you tell me what kind of training you have in mind? There doesn't seem to be any issue with your Panthera dragon. Sir Basco, he gave a silent command. Emerald. Emerald gradually materialized, radiating an aura that was both majestic and dangerous. At the sight, Lydia froze, her eyes wide with astonishment, her heart clenching at the magnificent yet dangerous presence. Well, Basco said, politely placing a hand on his chest, I believe I haven't explained myself clearly. I need training, but not for Emerald. I am the one who is lacking. She began to understand the problem. You can't understand the meaning behind the actions that Emerald takes, is that it? He and the dragon nodded together. Yes, that's correct. It only shows its emotions when we're alone, but even then, it rarely reacts to anything. So for Emerald to just naturally go to Lydia, it nuzzled against her hand as if she were something familiar. Basco was stunned when Emerald acted this way, so he tried to call it back, but Lydia. She gestured with her hand. Her finger gently touched her lips to signal for silence, and he followed Lydia's lead and stayed quiet. It was surprising that she only had to sit still for him to become incredibly affectionate. It was as if Lydia and Emerald's souls had become one. So cautious, you have such a great connection with that dragon. Basco was stunned by her skill. I didn't expect you to just sit still when Emerald approached you. Lithia was flustered. If I got scared that easily, I could never become a dragon trainer. Anyway, is there anything troubling you or something you wish to improve? He poured his heart out. I've always wondered what makes Emerald happy. The truth is, I'm not sure if I'm a good owner or not. Even after all these years together, I don't feel... Stalker Pantera, a dragon that is completely devoted to its master and never leaves their side. That dragon belongs. I provide shelter and food, and in return, he protects me. That's it. She mulled over Basco's words, like a true detective. Lithia quickly chimed in. I understand what you mean. Now to find out Emerald's preferences, we will have to observe him. Is that okay? He nodded with a small smile. Basco agreed to the suggestion. Well, of course I'm more than willing. Surprised you, huh? Lithia forced a smile. Then I'll have to stay near Sir Basco for a few days. I will do my best not to be a bother. Meanwhile, she was in complete shock. What kind of reaction was that? He politely offered his hand. I just hope I won't be a bother to you, Trainer Lithia. She shyly reached out and took it. Not at all. This is my job. Basco placed his trust in Lithia. Then I'll be counting on you for the time being. Like we're companions or anything. More like we're just indifferent roommates. Gilded chandelier, making the room glow like a painting. In the middle of it all, he sat writing, looking composed yet majestic. Pretending to do other work to lower Emerald's guard. A very convincing excuse. If she really has a secret motive like stealing the secret arts of the Duke's family, she could use this as a pretext to look for secret documents. It's the perfect opportunity. But surprisingly, the behavior of Lithia shows no suspicious signs at all. So much so that I have to wonder why Johan was so on guard. A few days went by, but even then, it was obvious she was only focused on the dragons, because her eyes were always on Emerald. Basco felt helplessly frustrated. So far all I've learned is that she dislikes being indoors. I see everything, Trainer Lithia, he asked, interrupting Lithia's weary state. So Trainer Lithia, have you found anything yet? Her gaze wasn't just shining, it also held a firm determination, both gentle and tender, yet it seemed to conceal an unspoken sorrow. Lithia's vague reply left Basco confused. About Emerald, yes, I have, he thought to himself. She has? The last time I checked the report, I didn't find anything missing and the magic sensors didn't detect any suspicious activity. If she hasn't done anything, it might be because she hasn't found the chance. It seems she's just using Emerald as an excuse to extend her observation time. What if I'm really just overthinking this, Johan? Was he mistaken? She handed the report to Basco. From my observations these past few days, when Emerald looks at you, Sir Basco, of Lithia shows no suspicious signs at all. So much so that I have to wonder why Johan was so on guard. A few days went by, but even, okay? A trace of doubt lingered in her mind. Am I just imagining things? The light pouring through the arched window reflected off the just gently pet his head. He was stunned by this answer, that the past few days could be summed up in such a short sentence. Suspicious activity. If she hasn't done anything, it might be because she hasn't found the chance. It seems she's just using Emerald as an excuse. But Emerald isn't like Kazan. His signs are more subtle, and he rarely shows his emotions, so they're a bit hard to notice. For example, sometimes he'll just stand still and stare. Basco looked confused, meaning, Lithia continued when she saw Sir Basco didn't fully understand what Emerald was trying to convey. He would just give up. He felt a pang of guilt for not paying attention to what Emerald. He looked like he was learning something new. Cats and dogs? She continued to explain. Kazan, the Duke's dragon, is more like a dog. When he wants affection, he'll come and nuzzle up to him. Then yes, that's all it takes. To put it simply, it's like the difference between a cat and a dog. Emerald's eyes shone like brilliant emeralds, exuding a wild yet pitiable aura, while his own gaze was silent and brooding. He likes this? For real? After being petted, Emerald was so delighted that he broke into a sweet smile, truly wanted. She smiled gently. Why don't you try petting his head now? Basco dazedly turned to look at him, and their eyes met, becoming even more affectionate with Basco. Lydia spoke gently. You take care of him so naturally. Does Emerald show less emotion? The eyes of a professional trainer. Compared to when he was little, he shows much less emotion now, and if you compare it to when he was an adorable little hatchling, she teased. Oh, has he become ferocious now? Basco exclaimed in a panic. Not at all, he's just a bit serious and hard to get close to. Lithia observed them and thought quietly. I see. Even though he calmly accepts his master's affection, Emerald is still a dragon, a creature, that could easily tear a human to shreds. The moment you let your guard down is when trouble can happen. Lithia suddenly spoke up. Sir Basco, do you have a moment? Basco repeated doubtfully. A moment? She quickly suggested. I understand you're very busy, but perhaps taking Emerald out for a walk sometimes would do him some good. What do you think? He said in alarm. A walk? I'm not so sure. Lydia was firm, as she declared. But shouldn't you give Emerald, the creature who is always with you, a chance to relax? Stunned and bewildered, Basco uttered. Ah, well then. Outside, she stretched and sighed to herself. Now this is the life. Although I have to come out to feed Kazan and help Rura and Lady Donna, the rest of the time I'm just cooped up in my room observing. It's so exhausting. And Emerald probably doesn't like it either. Dragons especially need to run around outside, not just sit still all day. Basco said sadly. Come to think of it, I've been neglecting Emerald because I was so busy with work. Lydia replied with a smile. You're a busy man, I understand. She thought to herself. Honestly, Basco works so hard, he totally deserves his salary. You could say he practically pours his entire soul into his work. I'd rather be tasked with feeding 30 dragons by myself than do all that paperwork. It's just not for me. Maybe because he understands the situation, Emerald doesn't ask for much. She carefully instructed, whenever Emerald stares at you, it's because he wants something. If he winds himself around your leg, it means, don't ignore me, so you should pet his head then, or pet him occasionally and take him out like this. It's best to go on walks together. Basco spoke up and asked, is that all? Lithia explained seriously. Yes, when you're on a walk, show him lots of affection. Just because he rarely shows it on the outside doesn't mean practically pours his entire soul into his work. I'd rather be tasked with feeding 30 dragons by myself than do all that paperwork. It's just not for me. Maybe because he understands the situation, Emerald doesn't ask for much. She carefully instructed, whenever Emerald, that he's emotionless. Look, he looks very happy, doesn't he? He stared at Emerald in astonishment. He said casually, it seems observing Emerald has been quite a challenge for you. Lithia was secretly mortified. Ah, she stammered. Anyway, please keep that in mind. Basco slowly inquired, is that really all there is to it? She cried out in confusion. Yes. Lithia quietly thought, the problem was never with Emerald. It's just that Sir Basco doesn't know how to approach him. She said, if you have any more questions, feel free to call for me. I'm also very happy to be able to observe a rare Stalker Panthera dragon like this. Basco burst out laughing, and she looked at him with suspicion. Him! Basco laughed loudly and couldn't stop. He exclaimed happily, Trainer Lithia, you truly are an interesting person. Lithia asked in surprise, what? She thought in a panic. What is this? Basco bowed and said sincerely, I must apologize in advance. Lithia cried out in alarm. Sir Basco, he explained, actually I requested that you train Emerald so I could spend time with you. She thought in surprise. Huh, Lithia stammered. You mean you were watching me? Basco said, seriously. That's right. Please forgive this impolite action, she asked coolly. But this is strange. Why would you admit it so easily? He remarked calmly. Because from what I've observed, you don't have any ulterior motives at all. You're just someone who loves dragons from the bottom of your heart, aren't you? Lithia quickly turned her face away. Basco watched her quietly. He suddenly spoke up. Trainer Lithia, do you know why the Duke entrusted me with a Stalker Panthera dragon? Lithia asked back, puzzled. Isn't it to ensure his safety and to protect him? Basco calmly recounted. Yes, but it's also because in this vast ducal estate, he doesn't trust anyone. You've heard the story about Johann Julius and Baron's uncle from back then, haven't you? After Julius and Baron and his wife were executed, it seemed as if everything was over, but the ducal family became unstable. Would the nobles pass up this opportunity to let the ducal title fall into the hands of a 12-year-old child? Anyone would see it as attractive prey, to the point that they would covet it, even if it meant getting blood on their hands. I know very well how unpleasant it is to be suspected. It seemed as if everything was over, but the ducal family became unstable. Would the nobles pass up this opportunity to the point that they would covet it, even if it meant getting blood on their hands? I know very well how unpleasant it is to be suspected, but I hope you understand, for many reasons. Lithia's voice was full of wariness. But I still don't understand why you're telling me this. I'm only working. People, that is true. She thought to herself. Most? He said leisurely. Most people can't single-handedly feed 3. That up? People doubted my abilities, so I had to prove myself and set them straight. Basco, he continued his remark, and a person with secret motives wouldn't spend a whole month training a dragon. 30 dragons. Lithia cried out in a panic. Huh? No, that's, she quietly thought. Why is he suddenly bringing, ever seriously harmed its master? Lydia hurriedly exclaimed. Wait, he calmly continued. That's not all, you also. To which a mortified Lydia shouted, how do you even know about that? It's just part of my job. A professional trainer is supposed to do that, right? Basco asked. Then why? Didn't you touch any of the important documents in my office? She replied seriously. Why would I? If I accidentally damaged them, someone else would have to do twice the work to fix it, he declared cheerfully. Exactly. If a person had ill intentions, there were countless opportunities to act. So tell me, do I have a reason to trust you yet? Leah cried internally in embarrassment. Damn it, when you put it like that, what can I even argue? Basco knelt on one knee and seriously spoke, Trainer Lydia. She cried out in alarm. Sir Basco, he explained earnestly, the Duke will still be suspicious of you. Even I, who grew up with him, took many years to earn his trust. I know this is a selfish request, but could you please try to understand his attitude? Suddenly, a voice rang out. What are you two doing here? Johan approached from a distance. Lydia exclaimed in shock. Your Grace, he said coldly. I asked. What are you two doing here? Lithia thought to herself. Why did the Duke show up so suddenly? She and Basco bowed respectfully, greetings to the Duke of Anbaron. She was surprised by Johan's displeasure as he glared at Lydia. Basco's voice replayed. In her mind, the Duke will still be suspicious of you. Even I, who grew up with him, took many years to earn his trust. I know this is a selfish request, but could you please try to understand his attitude? Of his? Johan asked sternly. Lydia, aren't you supposed to be working right now? Lydia hastily replied. Ah, Sir Basco asked me to help him train Emerald. He said nonchalantly. Is that so? It seems your workload isn't as heavy as I thought. She thought in a panic. Wait, I have a really bad feeling about this. Johan coldly remarked. Casually taking on another dragon. Perhaps I've underestimated your capabilities. Lydia cried out in frustration. Your Grace, it's not like that. Sir Basco just needed a little advice, that's why I agreed. Johan scoffed. A little advice? But you've spent the entire week by his side. She thought angrily. No way, he knew. Then why is he acting like this? Litia angrily turned her head away. He looked at her, stunned. Basco quickly tried to placate them. Please, both of you, calm down. And your grace, what trainer Litia said is true. Thanks to her, my relationship with Emerald has improved. Johan asked. Is that so? Basco said earnestly. I forgot to report it properly. Please forgive me just this once. Litia thought touched Sir Basco. He saw her smile, and Johan shot Litia a cold glare. She fumed silently. But, are you for real? Why is this happening? Litia suddenly spoke up. Your grace, he asked curiously. What is it, trainer Litia? She snapped. If you have a complaint, just say it to my face. You know that as the exclusive trainer, I am responsible for all the dragons in the ducal household. Litia thought quietly. Taking care of Basco's dragon is also part of my job, so what's the problem? He's such a tyrannical boss. Guess what? The conversation ended before long. Litia said, annoyed, did things have to turn out this way again? Basco said sincerely, I'm sorry, but you have to understand. There will be many more unfair situations from now on, she exclaimed angrily. You mean the Duke's unreasonable attitude is going to continue? He said calmly, I should have apologized beforehand. What he just said made you want to quit your job and leave the mansion, right? But it won't be for long. Litia asked in surprise. What do you mean? Basco calmly stated, because Kazan has accepted you. She asked back, confused. Just that? Basco said sincerely, I'm sorry, but you have to understand. There will be many more unfair situations from now on. He said seriously, can you imagine a life where you pay the price for letting down your guard, suspecting? Remember that Kazan has always been by the Duke's side, sharing those harsh years with him. Litia thought quietly, a life rife with suspicion, where he relies on a dragon instead of a human, with Kazan as the only exception, suspecting everyone who approaches him. What kind of life is that? It's like the tragic backstory of a main character, just like in a novel. If a situation like that were described in a book, I might have liked that detail. I might even have found it interesting. But to witness someone actually going through that life firsthand, Johan observed her carefully and asked calmly, What are you so lost in thought about? Litia said startled. Ah, your grace. Are you finished with your flight? Johan leisurely replied. She rushed to check on Kazan. He suddenly called out, So, trainer Litia? Litia answered, confused. Yes? Johan asked. Is Basco's training request complete? She was secretly surprised. Huh? Why is he asking about that all of a sudden? Litia said hesitantly. It's finished. Kazan huffed proudly. See? I was waiting so patiently. Johan calmly asked. Does it need continuous adjustments like with Dona? She quickly commented. No, not at all. Sir Basco's case. I only needed to teach him how to praise Emerald. There's nothing that needs adjusting. He said cheerfully. I was worried you'd have to face a situation similar to Donna's, but it turns out I worried for nothing. I hope you can still care for the dragons with such a busy schedule, Litia said seriously. Not exactly. He asked again, puzzled. How so? She explained carefully. If Emerald wasn't a stalker Pantera, and if Sir Basco hadn't raised him since he was a hatchling, an accident would have already happened. Throughout a week of observing Emerald, I realized that Sir Basco has too much work and almost no time, so he has neglected Emerald. Emerald might be devoted to him and see him as a parent, but how long will that patience last? If Sir Basco spent more time with him, perhaps. Johan spoke up seriously. Trainer Litia, are you requesting something that is outside of your authority? Litia cried out in surprise. Huh? He remarked calmly. Perhaps because you are the exclusive trainer of the ducal house you haven't realized it, but meddling in affairs that are not within your scope is an act of arrogance? Or perhaps you have another reason for making such a proposal. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story is not over yet, with many more exciting developments ahead, so don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. And to not miss out on the newest episodes. We hope you have a relaxing and enjoyable time. See you next time. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.